Thanks, Simon. Fellows, that's a photograph of a Glacier 3 aircraft I'm building and have been building for some time. So I'm going to tell you about how it came about, a bit about the aircraft itself, and then about the build. So I'm trying to compress 11 years into 10 minutes, so I'll do my best, but it's mainly show and tell, the slides. So how it came about, I like building things, and I restore classic cars and things like that, and I blame 11 years of my life building that on a guy called Kevin Warren. He's a crop duster from Port Lincoln, and I used to fly to Goolwa a lot. My mother lived there, so I used to fly into there, and they decided to put on an air show. So Jeff Eastwood there he got one roulette. Kevin Warren came, and quite a lot of other people. So it was quite a good air show. And this Glacier 3 beat the pants off the roulette, which is a PC9. So I was sold. I thought I'd like to build one of those. So I can get the next one. So in 2008, I used to go to an enormous air show in the States called Oshkosh. It's unbelievably big. It was like 12,000 other aircraft flying and parked there just to be there. So I went over there one year in 2008, and a friend flew me down to Arlington in Washington, where Glacier are established, and wanted to go for a fly in the Glacier 3. Didn't have one, went in a 2, which is a smaller aeroplane, slower, but very similar. So that's that event. So I came away from that thinking that it was very good, but I had a twin Comanche at that stage. I had it for 20 years, and she's a really good aeroplane, and I thought, well, I sort of went off the idea. So I came back, and looking in, there's a magazine called Aviation Trader, which is selling aeroplanes, and there is an ad for a kit for a Glacier 3, about half price, and all it had was a mobile number. And I said to Angela, well, I think it's probably in West Australia or in Cairns or somewhere, and it's been started, and I wouldn't be interested. But I rang up anyway, and it was in a hangar in a factory in Moorabbin. This guy had hired a factory, put it in there, opened the boxes. I think he looked in and got a fright and never did any more. So he decided to sell it, and so it hadn't been started, and so that was it. I bought it. So the aircraft itself, that's the paint scheme that I've got, different numbering of course, so it's a very special aircraft. That first photograph you saw was an authentic photograph of it actually going vertical. So it's very powerful, big engine, small aeroplane. It's fiberglass, 2-seater. It has a design for a Lycoming 9-litre aircraft engine of 300 horsepower. That 300 horsepower is developed at 2,700 RPM, so it's a big engine. It produces a lot of power early. Retractable undercarriage, fully aerobatic. It's tested to +9, -6G, which is, I couldn't stand a tenth of that. And the best of all, its normal cruise is 240 knots, so it's extremely fast for a piston engine aeroplane. It's very fast. As an example, my twin is no slouch. It's quite a quick aeroplane, 160 knots. This is 240. Small Cessna are about 100, 110. So this There's not much that can keep up with it. So we get into the building bit, and I began building it in 2011 with a plan of finishing it in 3 years. So obviously I discussed it with Angela, my wife, because it's a big impact on our life, and she agreed with that. And 11 years later, she's still with me. And over the years, lots of guys here too have asked me, how are you going on an airplane? When are you going to finish with it? And I would say, I'm going to finish it by Christmas. But I never did say what year. But I think, I'm fairly confident this Christmas is going to see that. So I have a large workshop at home that I used for cars and so on. So some cars had to go. And workshop, but someone would be interested, I've got lathes and mills and things. I needed that sort of stuff to make a lot of special tools and jigs to build this airplane. A lot of the time was building stuff to build it. But it only just fits. So the next photograph, it's a bit hard to see, but that is the workshop. The wing doesn't fit out the door in a straight line. That's the wing on a jig, on a rotisserie, fuselage in the back, and I spent a lot of time to get in. I had to duck under and get around, and I had to take this window out to get control rods into the wing and so on. Give you an idea how and I did that for the last 10 years or so I could work in a submarine, I think. One of the first things, I had to make all these jigs, so there's a early photograph of the fuselage on a jig, and I made it as a rotisserie, so I could rotate the fuselage longitudinally, and I made one for the wing, rotate that laterally, and because when you're fiberglassing, you want gravity work for you. If you're upside down trying to, and all the fiberglassing is hand laminated, so all these jigs took a lot of time. So in the kit we actually got some skins, fiberglass skins. You got lots of boxes of nuts and bolts. You got lots of metal, but it was just plain, like aircraft grade aluminium. It's all aircraft grade stuff, but just pipe and angle and so on. So you had to make and machine all of the metal bits and hand make the fiberglass bits. So enormously long job, longer than I expected. A lot of the engine and electrical stuff I had to get later. So, and all the engine was a separate issue. So the first thing, here's we're getting into the build now. I'm sort of not watching the time. You're watching the time.
We're watching the time.
The first thing that I had built was a horizontal stabiliser. Had to make a specially perfectly flat table for it and level, and that's in it. That's almost finished there. It doesn't look much, but there was an awful lot of work into that. And there's early shot of the fuse before the rotisserie. Give you an idea of the wing on a jig to get the right dihedral, the angle of the wing. This jig accomplished that. It's all full of ribs. Oh, there's a point here. All these ribs support and strengthen the wing. There's a very strong spar, like an I-beam, running all the way through, which is fiberglass. And the front of it is all tank, all fuel tank. And that's a fuel tank there, a fuel tank back here. So it gives you an idea of what's inside. It's all, this construction is fiberglass sandwich, so there is a foam of various densities that is sandwiched between fiberglass. So the cloth is laid and resin put into it, and then once you've done that, you cut them up and shape them. They've all got to be shaped perfectly to accompany the top of the wing and seal these tanks. This is a construction of flaps, for instance. They're called yeah, so that's the flaps and ailerons here. All the control surfaces are made individually, and then the hinges and all that, you make them out of the metal. It's a slotted flat arrangement. Now there's the engine. This is a picture of the engine. I bought it in the US for an from an engine rebuilder I know there. As I say, it's about 9 litres, 6-cylinder horizontally opposed, pistons about round, air-cooled, and they rebuilt it for me there, and I went over and saw it. We ran it in for 4 hours on a stand. So
you've got about another 3, don't you?
3 minutes.
Yeah.
Righto. There's a view of the undercarriage, retractable, as I say. There's the mechanism. It's very complicated because the aeroplane's so fast that the wheels go up into the wing and with doors, and without they can get sucked out. So this has all got a lock mechanism that when they come up they lock in, so they can't be sucked out by the speed. And it's hydraulic. Electric hydraulic, so that's the myriad of pipes. All the piping for it, going to all the wheels. Instrument panel, I developed that myself. That's built it at home. That's on a bench. It's all flat screens. It's the latest sort of avionics. That's the rear of the cabin for that. So here we are, about to leave home. I put it on a trailer to go and get painted. That all worked very well, except that trailer, parked it there that night, got up next morning, it's gone. And I borrowed it from a farmer mate. Wasn't insured, so I had to buy him a new one. So that was a very expensive shift. And here we are now putting it back together in my hangar at Tired. So wing on, engine on, most control surfaces, all the gears in, wiring's pretty complete, so it's getting fast, getting close. Glass in, doors, everything's done, except finish up upholstery and testing of the undercarriage and so on. There's the instrument panel in without, having lost the trailer, I'm not going to put all that gear in there and leave it down there until I'm ready to fly it. The screens and so on aren't in it at the moment. There's a side view. It's a terrific paint job. I've still got to put the stripes and things on. And here's a view of the engine there. It's everything is so tight, this aeroplane. So there's no room for any. The cowls, all the cows are made, but they cover all that props to go on. And that's pretty much it. Angela, I've pretty much built it by myself. I need an extra pair of hands. Angela has helped me. And there's a guy, authorised fellow, that comes and inspects it as it goes, so I can get the C of A. And he's become a good friend and a good advisor. So now the next, once I just finish assembling it back, I have to complete the registration, get the C of A, the certificate of airworthiness, do engine tests, do taxi tests, and flying tests. So that's.